Hey everyone, I've got some new artwork for you today. This one I did on my iPad in Procreate. This started as a study of just this kind of stone tower from a photo I found. I just decided to add some of my own stuff, like the hills in the background and some of the trees and the clouds. I'll just show you the time lapse as usual and give you my thoughts and kind of the overall goal and what I'm really trying to improve with studies like this, especially lately. So yeah, I hope you guys like this one. Thank you so much for watching. Let's go. So I just started with a line drawing for this one. I actually usually start with a line drawing these days, especially with my personal work when I have a lot of time to work on stuff that I really want to improve. From my own experiences and trying to learn all sorts of software and different methods to do my job, I really just came to the realization that I think having strong drawing skills is the most important thing by far, at least for me, because it's what I'm most interested in improving at. I just love the idea of being able to be so versatile using strong drawing skills that I don't have to rely on any other tools or softwares. If I feel like creating something and all I have is a pen and a piece of paper, I just love the idea of using a strong understanding of drawing to execute and not having to rely on being at your desk or your full PC setup. And I just think you set yourself up so much better for success with a very strong drawing as a foundation. And as I've said in other videos, it's especially nice because if you do screw up the painting and something gets lost along the way, you can always go back to the strong drawing or just accept the drawing as the final piece. So after I did the drawing, I just went straight to blocking in solid colors here, kind of just getting an average color for each separate element, and I created those on separate layers. So the trees are on their own layer, the hills in the back, the clouds, the sky, and the tower. So now I've just started on a multiply layer using pretty much the color of the sky to create some shadow shapes in these distant trees that are kind of carpeting the hill in the back. What's nice about using the multiply layer is you can still paint underneath it to do stuff like I'm doing here, adding local colors and textures and color variation to the material underneath without worrying about painting over the shadow that you created. You can see how quickly I had a really solid base established here just by using solid colors to block in based on my drawing, and this is where the strength of the drawing really helps me. I have a solid plan, so I'm not spending time trying to find the shapes and find the drawing just with color. I already have that fully planned out and established with a drawing that I really like, so all I have to think about is picking the right color and making sure that the palette is the way I want it to be. I don't have to worry about, the quality of the drawing and the composition anymore. I think something too that always brings me back to drawing is that's kind of what I grew up really enjoying, and that's what led me to choose this as a career in the first place. So there's like a almost nostalgic childlike feeling sometimes when I just really get lost in a drawing or spend a long time drawing just for myself. And there's a connection to that feeling of not worrying about how good your drawing is. You're purely just drawing because it's fun. So I think that's what keeps bringing me back to wanting to get as good at drawing as possible, and not necessarily attach my method to the best, like most optimal or most popular software or process that is being used in the industry. And I think no matter what softwares come and go and what advancements are made in certain ways to execute things, and VFX and 3D softwares, it's always worth it to improve your drawing skills, because it just brings an understanding of so many things along with it, like composition and understanding good shape design and how to describe form and stuff. I kept the multiply layer, like the shadow layers, intact for most of this process. And this brings me to my next thing I wanted to talk about with this piece specifically, is that right now I'm going through a bit of a change in how I want to approach my art, and I want to evolve in a really purposeful way. I don't just want to generally work and try to improve in this kind of abstract general way. I want to actually identify the kind of stuff I want to make specifically, and really be intentional about how I can study and improve in that way. What I've realized about myself over the years is I really enjoy the early, fresh stage of a painting and of a drawing, and the simplicity of creating nice, readable compositions. It's really that part that is what makes me excited. The later stages where you're just rendering and trying to increase the fidelity of everything, that part is always a bit of a drag for me, honestly, and that's the part that I always spend the longest doing. So right now I'm trying to find a way to stay in that early stage as long as possible, and find ways to finish an image to a level that I'm happy with without spending hours and hours in the rendering stage. So what that comes down to is having the confidence to just leave things in a simple state if in that state the image is serving the purpose I want it to. It takes a lot of confidence to work this way, and it's something I'm really working on to improve about myself and my own work. And there's so many artists that I look up to that have this simple, mature quality about their work, and I've just in recent years decided that I want to actively work towards that in my own way. Working so hard to get in the industry when I was younger, it instilled this idea that I have to make really externally impressive artwork. And I think my personal work and what I actually like has fused with what the industry expects of me to some degree. And I want to separate the two. I don't want what I need to do for the industry to seep into my personal work and my self-worth as an artist. Obviously, I still have those skills and I can use them at work as needed and to fulfill my job as a concept artist and an illustrator. But for my personal work, I want to practice stripping away everything that's not necessary for every single image that I make. And I think that will bring me to an understanding that will actually benefit me at work as well. I think there's always more you can strip away from your artwork than you realize, and still have it serve the purpose you want and generate the same emotion and the same impact in the viewer. It's really hard not to feel compelled to detail absolutely everything because you think more work on something equals better. I think that can be true, but the work that you're actually doing doesn't necessarily have to be just on details and increasing the level of detail and the fidelity of the rendering. That same work can be applied in coming up with creative ways to simplify things and pick the spots that are most important and really focus your efforts there. And everything that's not serving that main read or the focal point or the story you're trying to tell in your image can be stripped away. So that's why in this image, you see me leaving this foreground grass really, really simple with just a few shadow shapes. I really felt the urge to start rendering the grass. These are the kind of images I do to try and practice, and I still think there's way more I could have stripped away, and I still spent a lot of time doing stuff that wasn't necessary. But this is the kind of stuff I was thinking about the whole image, and this was the whole goal of the image, was to practice being more thoughtful about things that I'm simplifying and what needs to be there and what doesn't. There's a look that I want, but it's hard to know what it actually is without seeing it. It's hard to explain what I want. So there's a lot of just putting marks down, realizing maybe I don't need them, and then removing them. It just takes a lot of training your eye at the same time as creating your own work to begin to really connect with what you need and what you don't. I find it's hard to articulate what I mean, but yeah, this is also the benefit of making iterations and saving older versions. So I might create a copy of all this and flatten it to one flat layer and just keep it on top hidden, and I'll regularly check the older version to see if the changes I've made or the details I've added have improved the image at all, or have actually lost a bit of the freshness of the image that was there in the beginning. And for the most part of this image, I was really happy, and I felt like I made a minor breakthrough in planning things out, thinking about things in a simple way, focusing on major shapes, shadow shapes, and light shapes. And I still went through a little bit of a phase at the end where I think I went a bit too far and got too caught up in my old ways, and I didn't need to, but that's the whole purpose of these exercises. It's the more I push things too far, the deeper my understanding of when that point actually is, and I'll be able to recognize it in future processes, and maybe I can restrain myself. I'll say, oh, this feels like that familiar spot where in the past few I went a bit too far. So that's the purpose of these exercises, picking really specific ways that you want to improve and using artists that you look up to as inspiration and really trying to understand why their work is successful. In my case, having the confidence to just leave things be, even if it's way, way more simple than my usual stuff. I think for me, it feels more impactful to leave this simplicity, and sometimes the amount of rendering that I do just feels a bit superficial and not necessary. Just adding a few flowers in the foreground to help lead the eye to the tower here. The whole foreground field is the same hue. I just added a couple color variations to break it up and further draw our eye to the tower. A bit of a warmer tone of green near the rock wall, and then a little bit of a cooler transition to the shadow shapes in the foreground. But overall, this was a really fun image. I think it only took me a few hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours, which I was really happy with, and I feel like I learned quite a few things, and reinforced a bit of that idea of simplification to myself. And yeah, it always helps to start with a study like this, especially if you're feeling blocked or you don't have that many ideas for what to paint. It helps to just start with a study just to get yourself drawing, and then maybe, like I did here, you can add a little bit of change the composition and add environmental elements to just make it more fun and like less one-to-one studying. And I hope this can encourage you guys to pursue what you actually feel inspired by and the type of art that you see yourself being most fulfilled by. If you're trying to be a professional, working in the industry there's a whole different set of criteria that you have to consider. I guess this is coming from more of like a hobbyist perspective, staying true to a process that you really enjoy the passion for what you're creating comes through in your art. So it's hard to manufacture that quality if it's not the most aligned with what you actually want to create. If you're just doing it because it's what's popular or because you think you should make it that way, it's very hard to manufacture that the same quality as someone who actually genuinely feels passionate about creating it the way they really want to. So thank you guys as always for watching. Thank you so much for sticking around. I know it's been a few months since my last video. Please consider checking out my Patreon. I post a lot of works in progress and real-time stuff on there, and we have a really great Discord community that's helping each other out a lot, so please consider going to check that out. But either way, thank you so much for watching and being here, and I'll see you in the next video.